Hello, and welcome to Balloon Tower Defense. Today has been a day. I've tried to record this video 5 times, but my dogs have to. Every time I push the record button, they literally sit down, they'll be quiet for like 10 minutes straight. I'm like, okay, fine. I'll push the record button. And of course, they're right next to me, and they suddenly start barking at literally nothing. I don't know why, but hopefully, we got it sorted. Hopefully, we got it sorted. Put the monkeys like this as a forewarning to this video. If you wish to join the chaos, I'm talking about a lot of weird ass stuff. A lot of weird things. I have a bizarre theory about zombies. I have a very bizarre, and after the fact, like years after the fact, I think it's a funny story. At the time, it was definitely an interesting experience. Anyway, as background information for this story, first, I have no idea what happened with these movies. Like, genuinely, no idea. We had them for years, and then just one day they went kapoof. Like, we didn't move or anything, it was just they were there and then they were gone. No idea what happened. Absolutely no freaking clue. Although, if they somehow ended up thrown away, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised. So, start this story years and years and years ago. I was probably around 14, I think. We had gone to the library and we were like looking around their store, getting rid of books, and we saw this box decorated like a mausoleum with a bunch of horror movies in it that we had no idea what they were. They just seemed interesting. We're like, okay, sure. We bought them. The price was bad. It was like $5 for the whole thing, which the pricing they can have for that stuff, not all that bad. Anyway, we bring it home, and so like a week later, we sat down. I am grateful for the fact that at the time, my younger sibling was having a sleepover, so she was not present. But the movies weren't bad, but the ending, well, it was meant to be a shocker and it succeeded. Most movies, even with the endings, were pretty good. The first one we watched, we should not have started with that one. Others were pretty good. Even with the bizarre twists, they did have very, very bizarre twists. But overall, they were pretty good. It was just that one singular one, and of course, it was the very first one we started with. That was, yeah, it was a something. There will never be denying that it was a something. I can't remember exactly what it was called. It was something like Hendrik's Tale. And I can't even remember the studio because I had never heard of it before. I'm not even sure if it was like an American company. It was probably like an independent studio thing, but no idea. So we're sitting down. It is me and my parents. And once again, I'm around 14, so keep that in mind for the ending of this. But we were all hanging out in my parents' bedroom and randomly picked it. We popped it in, and it starts out pretty nice. This guy, he says he's looking for a necromancer, and he goes to this lady and he says, I heard you're a necromancer. I heard you can bring the dead back to life. And she's like, I can't do that. But before I do, I'm going to tell you a story. If at the end of that story you still want me to go through with this, then I will absolutely bring back whoever you want. And he's like, sure, I'll listen to your story as long as you're willing to bring back like my loved one. I think it was his wife. Let's just say his concerns got overshadowed by some of the other stuff. So she starts this tale of Hendrik from years before. He was a very poor man, and he recently got a letter from his uncle, well, his uncle's estate, saying, hey, your uncle passed away. You have to come here and receive your inheritance. So he's like, all right, well, that's shitty, but okay. So he starts heading out, and he comes across this bizarre show of a guy claiming to be a necromancer, performing these incredible feats of resurrecting like a dead dog. And he's like, that's fucking weird. But okay, he's curious, so he stands around, he watches. The guy shows like a dog in a basket that's now dead, and then he closes the basket, he performs this chant, and then the basket starts moving. The dog's head pops out, but it's like beastly and grotesque and all this stuff. And Hendrik's standing there and he's like, that's, don't like that. However, there's this husband and wife who they fully believe in what he achieved. They're like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. So after the show, they go to this necromancer guy and they're like, hey, our daughter recently passed. And we were hoping, would you be willing to perform this incredible miracle on our child to bring them back? And he's like, I can, but he asks this like astronomical amount of money. And he says, I can absolutely do what you're asking for, but it takes a huge toll on me. Do you think it's fair that I give up like a year of my life to bring back your child without compensation? So Hendrik is like, that's sketchy. I don't like that either. And he's like, you know what? I'm just done with this. I need to go visit my uncle's like estate. I just got money. I need to go. I have other shit to do. So he heads off, and as he's journeying to wherever he's heading off to, it starts absolutely pouring. So he's like, damn it. He makes his way to the nearest house, apologizes and said, hey, could I just stay at least until it stops raining? I don't really have any other options. I don't really have anything to offer you. I just... And the man that answers the door, he's like, sure, you can stay in. I do ask that you be a bit gentle. My wife's a bit fragile, and she can be a bit eccentric at night. So as long as you're willing to be, like, respectful and understand that things are a bit weird here, then sure, you could stay. Hendrik's like, absolutely. I just want to be out of the rain. We're good. We're cool. He does get a bit of the ick from this old man when he sees the old man's wife, who's this really, really young woman who's dressed in like barely a nightgown, and she's just sitting by the window staring out into the pouring rain. But he's like, okay, they're doing what they're doing, sure. So he settles down for the night. They have dinner. And later in the evening, he hears this bizarre crash. It's still storming and all this. And he heads out and he sees the front door wide open with the old man just sitting there staring out the front door. And he's kind of like crying. Not really sobbing, but just like has a beer in his hand, tears rolling down his cheeks. And he's like, I just wanted her to be happy. I didn't think it'd end up like this. And just lamenting that he did something horrible. Hendrik assumes he did something to his wife, and he's looking around. The wife isn't anywhere to be seen, and the door's wide open, so he's assuming, okay, the wife has to be outside. So he's like, what did you do? What happened? The old man doesn't explain, and Hendrik, wanting to help this lady, assuming she's in danger, quickly bolts out the door. He rushes out along this path and he finds the necromancer, who is standing at the edge of this massive cemetery, and he is very interested in whatever is going on in that cemetery. He has this big old smile. He'll like, damn, this is the best thing I've ever seen. And Hendrik is like, what the fuck are you doing here, you creep? Are you doing something weird to the wife? Did you do something to his damn wife? And the guy's like, you just don't want to go in there. He doesn't explain shit. Hendrik is still freaking out, like, where the hell is this woman? Like, is she okay? What's going on? And he bolts inside the cemetery, assuming that this necromancer, maybe the old man, someone did something, and that this woman is in danger. The sight he comes across is definitely not anything that he, nor myself, nor my dad, or my mom were expecting. It turned into softcore porn with the wife and her first husband who had died. Apparently what had happened was the wife was previously married to the love of her life. Something happened, he died, and the old man, knowing that she clearly was not happy with him, upon coming across the necromancer, decided, okay, I'm going to bring back your husband. I'm going to pay this guy. We're going to bring your husband back that you loved so much so that you can be happy. And so every night she was sneaking off to live with her zombified deceased ex-husband. And then it cuts back to the present of this guy listening to her talking, and he's like, that's a weird ass story, but I still want you to bring back my dead wife. And she's like, you know what? I can understand that love, and now having seen what happened, you can now recognize the now much older, elderly figure of the woman who all this happened to. But before she can perform any feats and bring back anyone, Baby is heard crying from the back of the house. And she's like, I'll do that right after I take care of this. So she disappears into the back of the house and returns with a bizarre, terrifying zombified baby like you would see crawling around Spirit Halloween, those whatever animatronic thingies. I don't know. I don't know how to describe them better, sorry. Along with the now deceased and resurrected necromancer, the now deceased and resurrected Hendrik, the now deceased and resurrected old man, and her original resurrected zombie ex-husband. All of them are kind of clinging to her, they're just like shambling about, and she's smiling brightly like, these are my husbands, and we would happily be willing to reunite you with your wife so that you can have a lovely relationship with her, just like ours. And of course, this man, she's like, fuck all that. And he runs out screaming, and she's like, oh, I guess he didn't want to join the party. And then it hands away from her. She just starts cackling. Despite the shocking ending, it was not a bad movie. It was definitely memorable. It did catch us off guard. It succeeded in what it set out to do, probably. I'm assuming that was the goal of the studio. However, the most shocking part of this whole story isn't even the movie, it's the fact that after we watched this, like I said, I was watching this with my parents at 14 years old. None of us had any idea. We had no idea. what any of this was. We just had the brief description of this is the tale of Hendrik, who runs into a necromancer. That was it. We assumed it was probably going to be zombies or something like that, because that's normally what happens with that sort of thing. But even after watching that movie with my parents, we all decided, you know what, let's watch another one. I mean, what's the worst that could... Right? What's the worst that could happen? Oh boy. We're gonna go right here. The second one wasn't as traumatizing, but it was also equally as much of a mindfuck. Because the story was weird as hell. It was really cool. The way they did it definitely screwed with your head, and the way they went about it was perfect for the story they were telling. They did it very well. But watching it for the first time was definitely, what the hell am I watching? What is this? Which, that goes for almost all of them. Some of them had I don't even think I ever watched all of them. There was like 5 of them I never got the chance to watch before the thing just disappeared. But some of them followed the more stereotypic story of there's a killer in a hotel and there's all these people going missing and all of this stuff. And all of them had these weird ass twists, which did definitely make the movies memorable. So whatever studio did this, like I did not recognize the studio or anything like that. Whoever did it, they succeeded in their goal. Whatever they set out to do, they just succeeded in making it memorable. And getting anyone who watched it to ask, what the fuck did I just watch? Which I'm pretty sure was the goal in all of that. Right. So, the other movie, I can't even remember what it was called. It was like Twins or something like that. I could be wrong. I really don't remember. But it starts with this guy heading to Japan. And he goes to this, like, inn/brothel type place. I don't know the proper term for it. But stay the night and you get sexy lady for the night. Whatever that equates to. I am not versed in proper wordage. So, my bad. But he goes there and he's looking for someone specific. And so he asks around for this specific woman. And they're like, she's not here. We have no idea who you're talking about. And he's like, are you sure? Like, I know her. I've been with her before. And I want to see her again. And they continue standing by. We have no idea who you're talking about. And say either are you going to stay and we can give you someone else, or are you going to leave because you're going to be a problem? And eventually he relents. He's like, okay, fine. I'll stay and we'll go with that lady. And he points to this woman who's like sitting in the back with her face covered and like hiding. And his plan isn't to sleep with her or anything. It's just, hey, if I have to have someone, I'll just go with her and we could chill for the night. He's also hoping to, once again, get information on the lady he's looking for. His story is he had come overseas a few years back and had spent a lovely evening with this woman that he had fallen in love with. But as he was here on business and was working a contract, he couldn't stay long. And his plan was, I'm going to get money, I'm going to save up a bit, I'm going to come back here, and I am going to bring her home with me so we can live a happy life. And she's like, absolutely. I look forward to seeing you again. And then they were forced to part ways. So that evening, when this like other woman comes in, he asks her about this first lady, and she says, I don't know, I can't talk about that. I can't tell you what happened. The guy pushes a bit, but he's finally like, I just want to know that she's okay. If she fell in love with someone else, if she found happiness somewhere else, that's fine. It'll hurt, sure, but I just want to make sure that she's okay. Did something bad happen to her? Because everyone's saying she just doesn't exist anymore. And finally, the lady kind of relents, and she's like, well, she was taken away and probably killed. And comes up, tells this story about how they had actually been kind of friends before the first woman was taken away. Her contract was basically sold to someone else who definitely did not treat her right. And essentially, they closed the book and said, we're never going to talk about her again. Nothing happened. She didn't exist. And the guy, of course, is devastated. He's like, oh, I failed her. I failed her so much. And then he looks at her and he's like, well, what's your story? Maybe even if I failed her, maybe I can help you. Like, you've been hiding your face. You seem okay. Like, maybe I can help you. And so she starts telling her story of herself. And the whole movie is her retelling the story and you slowly piecing together what actually happened from the original story that she was telling that was hiding a lot of information to the true story that reveals what actually happened. The ending is also bizarre as hell. Like I said, all the endings to these movies were bizarre as hell, but definitely memorable. But so she tells this story of, well, I grew up in this small village. My parents and I, we were kind of like outcasts. We lived out in middle of fucking nowhere. The town was like a few hours walk away. And we are gonna get a super monkey. And we're gonna put him just right there. Because why not? And I had gone out. I had this bucket of water. I was just throwing some like dirty water out into the stream, and some people came, they grabbed me, and I was brought here and was basically sold off. And he's of course like, oh, that's devastating, but something feels wrong. It's clear that she's hiding something, like the whole time she's hiding part of her face, she's being really, really sketchy. There's something clearly off about this. So he continues talking, and they're just chatting. And once again, he's like, are you sure there's nothing else? Nothing that you're hiding from me? That you're not telling me about? And finally, she's like, well, earlier when I told you that the woman you loved was dead, I have not been being truthful. It's less of she was sold off and killed, and more of she was killed in the house. And basically she confesses of, I didn't want to do anything like this, but I was forced to hurt her. And the guy, he of course is devastated once again of, oh my god, not only did I fail her, but now I'm also, damn it, I was three freaking things away. Damn. Okay. We're gonna go until I'm done telling stories. And it's just how it's gonna work. So he's like, oh, that's horrible. That's even worse because not only was the person I care so much about, not only is she gone, but now you're telling me that you were forced to hurt her. And he's also feeling even worse because I've basically just befriended and offered to help the person that killed my lover. So he starts pushing more like, what actually happened? Like, you already tried lying to me once, what actually happened? And so she starts her story all the way over again. She's like, okay, well, the truth is, I was hiding more stuff from you. So my story wasn't as simple as I led on. Of, yes, my parents and I, we lived in the outskirts, but her mother ran basically an abortion clinic from back in the day. This is like before technology and stuff like that. And they're also out in the middle of nowhere, so there's no medical supplies. So we're gonna deal with your problem under the radar, and no one has to know. And this, of course, didn't end well for anyone involved. Her parents got in massive trouble when people found out, and what she had been doing was dumping out the waste from one of her mother's clients. So as she was doing that, some people arrived, they took her away, and she was sold into that line of work, just like she told in the first story. But even then, there's still something clearly not being told. He gets the sense that she is still lying to me. So he continues asking and continues pushing, and she confesses that she was jealous of the woman. Like, she had this guy who she had fallen in love with. She was going on and on about how the fact that he was going to come back for her. And now, given the fact that he was here, he clearly meant those words. And so she was jealous. She was pissed off of, how could why does she deserve this? And the only thing she could come up with that made this other woman more deserving of the fact that she had fallen in love and had someone who was going to come save her from this line of work was the fact that she was pretty, while this second woman wasn't conventionally attractive. She had like scars on her face and stuff like that. She wasn't monstrous, but definitely not what most people would consider pretty, and I fucked up again. Kill me. Okay. I got this. We're fine. It's fine. On top of that, she retells her story once again of, she is essentially considered cursed. And this is because her parents were brother and sister. They were brother and sister, and they couldn't really live an ordinary life because that was taboo. Cannot snoo with your relatives. No. But they decided to do it anyway. They were chased out of town and produced her. Father was an asshole. The mother, just to make ends meet, was running her shady clinic, which was not allowed, which made it even worse. And the parents, not really having much way of income or many options, ended up selling her to make ends meet. On top of that, she reveals that the reason she keeps hiding like part of her face is she has a second face, this second smaller face that is apparently her twin. That is a curse from all of the babies that her mother sacrificed. or something like that. It was very weird. All of it was very weird, and I am dead again. That's the way they kind of explained it. It was weird. The whole thing was weird. And he, of course, sees it. He's like, "Holy shit! What the?" So not only, so let me get this straight. You have a demon attached to your face because it's like tiny face, like cackling. It starts talking to him and all this stuff, and it's all freaky. And of course, he's panicking. He's like, "You have a demon attached to you. You murdered my lover. With me." And she's like, "Well, I want to be saved too, and you were going to save her anyway, so it's only right that take me with you. Save me." And he's panicking and he's sobbing. He doesn't know what the fuck to think. He doesn't know what to do. And then everything goes dark. And he wakes up in a prison cell. And the, like, officers or the jailers or whatever, they bang on the cell and they're like, "Hey, you need to keep it down. Stop either crying and shit. You deserve to be where you are." And he's utterly confused. He's like, What did I do?" And they don't answer him. They're just like, "Pull yourself together. You're gonna be here for a long ass time." And then they walk off, leaving him alone with his thoughts and a bucket where crying starts to be heard. He goes, he looks into the bucket, and he sees this weird baby thing. And he just starts bawling as he curls up and like wraps his arms around the bucket. He doesn't even really know what to make of it, and that's how it ends. Really weird. Definitely memorable because what the fuck was literally literally the whole thing. At that point we decided, you know what? That's enough. That's enough of these movies for forever. For a while at least. Like I said, later on I did watch almost all of them. There were like a few I didn't. One like followed stereotypic hitchhiker, got stuck on the side of the road and all of this stuff. They all had weird ass twists. Some of them were cooler than others, but yeah, all of them were definitely memorable. Before I call it here, I'm probably not making it to the end of this anyway, but before I call it, I'm gonna give you my weird ass zombie theory. So, the brain is a very, very complicated thing. It's the control center of your body, all of this. It's very bizarre. Theoretically speaking, in the case of a zombie apocalypse, because of the way your brain works and the way it applies like information and sort of your habits, depending on the parts of your brain that are still left intact upon becoming a zombie, depending on the type of zombie, zombies would be able to drive. Zombies would be able to ride bikes. Zombies might even be able to ride horses. Then again, the riding horses part would definitely apply more to the horse, because if the horse says no, you're not getting the fuck on. Especially as a zombie who's going to be shambling a lot more and definitely not fully there. This because some things, it's not fully intelligence based. You initially learning how to drive and all that stuff might be a bit intelligence based. You can't be a complete idiot. You do have to have some knowledge of how things work in order to learn how to drive. But once you have learned, Mushroom, I'm trying to play a game. You cannot be on my lap right now. But once you have learned, once those skills are in your brain, it's not going to be easily forgotten. Even in cases of amnesia, where you don't fully remember how or why things are the way they are, or stuff like that, it's a separate part of your brain that controls actions than full on like core memories and stuff like that. More or less. Like I said, brain complicated. Being very, very complicated. I'm not a neurologist, but brain very complicated. But in cases of amnesia, it's not outlandish to come across stories of people who have amnesia or had amnesia. I did really bad. I'm just gonna go till I finish my explanation, okay? We're going till I say so. Then again, if you want to say fuck this video, uh, you're probably already gone anyway. In the hell I cut myself down. Don't question anything. Uh, but it's the logic behind once you have learned how to ride a bike, you're never gonna forget. It's the same kind of basic principle of once you have developed certain habits of certain actions, that is ingrained into certain parts of your brain. So there are people who like have amnesia and they'll be able to sign their name even if they don't remember their name. There's a old story of a guy who he had short-term memory loss, the same type that like Dory has. He could not retain those memories, but if he did something repeatedly, even if he didn't remember ever doing it before, he would still be able to do it because it was in a different part of his brain that it could recall it even if he couldn't directly recall it. The way they tested this was they gave him the same maze every single day and told him to solve it, and he did get faster and faster at it even though he never remembered ever being given this maze. There's also this really, really crazy story of a murder. I do not remember any of the people's names involved, but it was like an insurance thing of the son wanted the mother and father's life insurance. Somehow the mother forgave him. That's a whole nother story of I cannot see a world where you could, or even if somehow you could in your mind forgive someone for doing that, that you would be able to go through the actual actions of following through forgiving them. But that's a whole nother thing that doesn't involve zombies. Anyway, he went into his parents' house, he hit them both in the head with an axe. The father didn't immediately die and the mother ended up surviving. The parts of the brain that the father didn't have damaged allowed him to actually get up the next morning and follow his morning routine because it was the same thing he's been doing for like the last 20 years. He got up, he started the dishwasher, he rinsed out a coffee cup, he made himself a cup of coffee, he took a sip, he went to the door, and then he dropped dead right before leaving to start his day. If the right pieces of your brain are intact, even in a not fully alive state, such as a zombie, you could get stuck in this loop of just going through your daily routine. Of course, it varies drastically on the type of zombie and all that stuff, but it's not fully intelligence based. So even a zombie that's just has the basics in their mind of basics of this is what I know and this is what I've been doing for like the last 30 years of my life or something like that, they would be able to replicate it. Same with like being able to walk. If a zombie can walk, if you have been driving enough, a zombie, as long as those parts of the brain are together, would be able to drive. Not necessarily very well, and it could just be going in this loop of like driving to the office and back, or even just working at a computer all day, or doing whatever you did for your daily routine throughout your whole life because that is stuck in your brain. That repetition is stuck in your brain. Anyway, there's just my weird zombie rant because it's not fully an intelligence thing. The main thing that comes with driving and intelligence is the other cars. Driving a car itself without the other vehicles isn't inherently complicated because you don't need to know every single aspect of the car to be able to drive it. You should. It would definitely be helpful to know a lot more about your car um, than the average person does. But it's not a requirement to be able to get it to go forward. And the biggest issue, if it was just going in a loop, would be if something happens and the road is blocked off, they would just crash going through that loop. And then just be frozen because their brain is trying to do something that it can no longer do. But yeah, so there's my weird ass zombie rant of theoretically zombies, regardless of intelligence, as long as the right parts of the brain are still intact, could theoretically drive cars. They could also theoretically use guns if that was a thing that the person had in their brain so strongly. Of course, the biggest variable in all of this is the type of zombie. If it's like something taking over the brain, that in my head would also be more likely to actually allow the person to do all of this stuff because something is controlling them. So if it's controlling them enough where they have the habit of being able to walk, because you did have to learn how to walk, even though it's not a real common thing or thing that you probably really acknowledge later in life unless you have kids. Right at the beginning, you did have to learn to walk. And in extreme cases, like if you get a horrible injury, you do have to kind of relearn to walk as your body's adjusting and healing. You still have the knowledge and understanding of how to make those movements, but your body readjusting to move properly after that trauma is complicated. But yeah, there's my chaos. I'm gonna call it here. Thank you for joining me. Hope you have a lovely day. Hearing me rambling and all of that chaos. Uh, I apologize for nothing. Farewell.